My assignment as a new reporter on a major newspaper, the old New York World Telegram and the Sun, was the education beat. I normally wrote about issues like declining reading and mathematics test scores, attempts to unionize teachers, and racial integration disputes, until I was pulled away by a mini-scandal concerning shoddy construction and renovations that were endangering the safety of thousands of students and teachers in their classrooms. There was stark evidence of crumbling roofs, walls, floors, electrical fire hazards, and one instance of sewage mixing with drinking water in a high school. All of these violations stemmed from inferior substandard materials and installations, provided for years by a small clique of companies. Digging into the backgrounds of the building trades companies unearthed an unwholesome pattern. Many firms had unlisted or phantom investors who were connected to mob families. Much of the low-bidding competition for lucrative school jobs apparently had been rigged by the Mafia to balloon profits through a gimmick called changed orders. School officials responsible for construction and contract oversight were fired or abruptly quit, and negligent contractors were banned from future school work. But not a single mafioso involved in the mess was indicted. The reason? Officials retreated, saying there was no clear paper trails incriminating mobsters in money skimming, and no contractor had the courage to testify about the mob's role in the scandal. In short, the Mafia endangered thousands of children and escaped unscarred, with its loot untouched. Later, as an investigative newspaper and television reporter, I kept running across the Mafia's fingerprints on numerous aspects of government, law enforcement, unions, and everyday life. There were stories of mobsters introducing and overseeing heroin trafficking in Harlem. Without strong police interference, blue-collar neighborhoods were destabilized and turned into drug souks. There was the ordeal of George Whitmore, a black teenager framed for a triple murder and wrongly imprisoned for years, with the help of rulings by a judge appointed through the support of Mafia bosses. There was the exposure of perfectly fit mafiosi obtaining disabled driver permits that allowed them to park almost anywhere in the congested city. Their redundant friends at police headquarters authorized the valuable permits. There was the chronic intimidation of Fulton Fish Market merchants, who were compelled to fork over protection payments to mobsters to avoid daily harassment of their business operations. And there were the uphill struggles of honest painters, carpenters, and teamsters, who were brutally assaulted when they spoke up at union meetings about mobsters taking over their locals and ripping off their welfare and pension funds. It required little sagacity for a reporter to determine that by the 1970s, the Mafia operated as a surrogate state in the New York metropolitan area, brazenly dominating vital businesses and imposing its farrago of invisible surcharges on everyone. In fact, the mob's economic surge in the second half of the century was astonishing. A government analysis estimated that, in the 1960s, the illicit profit of the nation's 20-odd Mafia families topped $7 billion annually, approximately the combined earnings of the 10 largest industrial corporations in the country. The lion's share of the illicit wealth was reaped by the most powerful segment of the Cosa Nostra conglomerate, the 5 New York gangs. For much of the 20th century, New York's municipal and law enforcement authorities seemed indifferent to these criminal inroads. Questioned in the 1970s about the Mafia's sway, officials privately conceded that previous attempts to dislodge them had been largely futile, and there was no public outcry for similar meaningless crackdowns. Then, too, the authorities felt that the public largely tolerated mafiosi as unthreatening to the general population, viewing them as a loosely organized group engaged largely in nonviolent crimes like bookmaking and operating popular neighborhood gambling dens. The apologists contended that strict regulatory enforcement of the wholesale food, construction, and garbage carting industries might produce severe